Good morning, everyone. Hope you all have your coffee in hand and are ready to have a very insightful Saturday morning with Genevieve Trousdale. This event is presented by the ASID UCLA Extension Chapter, and we are so thrilled to be working with community leaders and mentors such as Genevieve and Circophiles who have extended to share their knowledge, their tips, and their insights with all of you guys. And as you guys will get a feel for how Genevieve is, and she's so kind, so sweet, very open, truly just wants to help all of you guys, all of us emerging design professionals, and really wants to help us in any way that she possibly can. So don't be shy. Get chat in the chat box. Make sure you say hello. I'll also be sharing her contact information so that you guys can connect with her afterwards. And I already see the chat very active, so thank you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Lisette Meza. I'm the current chapter president of our student chapter. And here we have Genevieve Trousdale, interior designer and founder of Circophiles, which you guys will get to learn all about today. Genevieve, would you like to say hello and get a chance to introduce yourself to the audience?
Yes, hello everyone, and I am just so flattered that you guys all showed up on your weekend to come hear me. And I think what I'll have to say today will really impress upon you, the strides we're taking to help you transition into the workforce much more smoothly and just be a resource for you and kind of really open your eyes to what's possible and just the help we are offering you. So thanks again for coming.
And so I'm going to go ahead and get started with one of the first questions that was actually submitted by one of the students. And one thing that you guys will see is all of you students or friends or family members, whoever submitted questions in the Q&A, we actually formed the presentation around a lot of these questions submitted. So I think you guys will find it really exciting and really insightful. Genevieve, could you first share with us what inspired you to become an interior designer?
Yes, so I am just one of those people that had it in my family blood. My grandmother was a Francophile. She was a collector of antiques and just always, had these beautiful historical pieces of furniture. And I, was just so tall, studying the details and really learned a lot from her travels and my mother was a landscape designer. And so she kind of had that creative bone in her body as well. And I think I just was, through osmosis, picked it up and just really set at an early age my path to, being a designer. It was a very, kind of calculated process to get to where I am now. And so, yeah, that's just a lot of people don't happen upon it that way, but I was lucky enough to discover that early on.
And now you went to the University of Georgia, fellow UGA graduate. Now, can you tell us about your journey from student to professional designer and ultimately founder of Circophiles?
Yeah, so I am from Louisiana, and a lot of people don't go outside of Louisiana for a couple of reasons, but I just thought I needed to get out while I could because once you go through college there, you form your friends and you're more likely to stay there. So I went to Georgia because of their design school and was also just wanting a completely new experience with new people, different, cultures. And beyond the design program, learned so much about, life and skills, logistics of settling into a new community. So that really gave me the confidence to seek internships in other places. So I began in, I think I had 3 internships. My freshman year, I had one in New Orleans with the kind of grande dame of interior design there. And she was just a wealth of knowledge. And I, worked in her sample library, as we all do to start. And just, studied the contents of the fabrics and how she would use them. And she would, take me along to client meetings and installations. And I just wanted to be and see as much as I could. And then I came out to Los Angeles for another internship with Suzanne Reinstein, and she was a connection from Jerry Bremerman. And that is kind of, that connection is really what led me to, the place I am now, making sure that I am keeping the, people I am working with, my network, informed of what I'm doing, and asking for help. And, really, it's, no one knows how to help you sometimes unless you really directly ask them. And so, leaning on my network, I was able to, intern with Suzanne, and she really took me under her wing and showed me LA and really made me fall in love with it, and just exposed me to, again, that high level of design, with projects all over. And so then I just knew I had to come out to LA when I graduated. And one of the things that unfortunately kind of happened at Georgia was that my advisor was, in a way, a little bit discouraging, which was kind of shocking, and the antithesis of what she should be doing. But I guess she thought my goals were too lofty. And, I kept saying that I wanted an internship in New York or LA. And she said, I really need to think more realistically. And that was like the fire under me to get, to, certainly ignore that mindset, but to just really, go for the goal. That sounds so cheesy, but so when I came out to LA, I, really researched who I wanted to work for. And, it doesn't always happen to where, oh, you want to work for this person and you get the job. But come to have it, I started working with Michael Berman, and he was, I just have so many wonderful things to say about him. He is so committed to being a mentor. And he was one of the, if you've read the job security checklist, he was one of the ones that said, here's a book, go read it, don't just look at the photos, learn the vocabulary, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Because a lot of times, whether it be the lingo or just the way you speak with clients or describe furniture pieces is not going to be what you've learned in school. It's just being in field is how you get that experience. And by reading these books and hearing designers talk about their projects and how they accomplished, this carving or, this certain vignette is really important to start developing at an early age. So he was really instrumental in teaching me that. He gave me a lot of creative freedom. He was very open-minded to what I had to bring to the table. I was more kind of Southern. He was kind of, a modernist and had a lot of, streamlined, he still does very streamlined pieces and a very edited aesthetic. And I learned to refine my design style through him. So I worked with him for about 5 years, and really, got my footing with project management and speaking with clients and, specifying pieces from all over the world. And because of that freedom he gave me, and he supported me in doing that. And I just had this bone in my body again that I just needed to go, to kind of the next level and travel internationally. And I traveled with him a lot within the States to Chicago on buying trips with clients. And that was another, very educational part of my journey. And we had, projects all over California. And I just wanted that, that passport to the next level, literally. And I kind of fell upon a job opportunity with Timothy Corrigan. And, he asked me in my interview if I had a current passport. And that was just, that saying to me, this has to be for me. And, he took me, I remember the interview like it was yesterday. He took me through his office, and he had kind of these different chairs lined up, and they were raw frames, chair frames with different types of carvings. And I was able to speak to what those elements are called. And if the proportion didn't look like right, he had them in his office because he was inspecting them for an actual project. It wasn't just, oh, let's bring Genevieve for this like pop quiz, So I was able to speak through that, and that really told him a lot about the experience I've had, and how I can apply that to his projects. And so 5 years with Timothy Corrigan was like 50 years. I he has so much volume of work to be done there, and I was just so hungry to do anything and everything. So I quickly gathered that I needed to come up with a system of how to make sure I don't miss a beat. And, going that fast, working on 3 to 4, 20 to 50,000 square foot homes in different parts of the world was just very overwhelming. And so coming up with, these templates and systems where I have the written down, the formula to, the journey to a client presentation. What do you need to pull first? What is conceptual and imagery? What is the timeline of ordering your goods for a project that's 18 months until installation? You order your rugs first because they're the longest lead time. So all of these things that I kind of either picked up on because no one had the time to train me. People are just going too fast. All of these things I started to write down and keep note of. And especially vendors. I knew a lot, coming from Michael Berman, but finding trades, craftsmen like, woodworkers and installers in these new locations to me, whether they were actually, in another country or a place I'd never been to in the US or didn't have a contact there. It was hard to find those people. And, he leaned on me to, vet them and qualify them for the job. So that is when, I really started swiftly developing my database and kept it in this like rudimentary spreadsheet with all these different tabs of, electricians, decorative painters, shippers. I had to have that. And so I began, I developed this whole procedural, system from the moment a client signs a contract to all the way to installation, all of the details in between, how to, properly place a purchase order. What are all the details you need to specify? What's in our install kit? So many things. And I ran our design teams based on this kind of formula I came up with. And we all shared this spreadsheet, and it was significantly more efficient for our office. And that's, I left it, for Tim to keep running his office on when I went off on my own. But um, it is what I have brought forth in Circle Files. And so we have kind of three key tenets of our organization. It's a membership organization, and we have a resource directory of brands, artisans, and service providers globally. You can, as a professional member, write reviews for these vendors. So kind of showing a non-catalog version of a specific finish, or something that you may not gather, on the vendor's website. Have another designer's opinion of a piece or an installation job is very valuable. And oftentimes it takes a long time to get to, someone who's can give you a candid review. We also have a virtual networking section of our platform where you can chat with peers in a chat room and ask advice. You can pull an image in, say, I'm looking for this lamp. Has anyone seen something similar? Or anything you need kind of in an emergency. We also have message boards, which are structured with different topics that you can ask at any time, and it will send out to our members so that everyone knows there's a new topic and you have the chance to reply. We also have industry experts in our message boards from time to time to give advice on accounting, or a business coach, or an editor. And we, thirdly, our kind of last is our, and why kind of all of you are here today, is our educational section, which is filled with kind of workflow templates and expert guides on running the logistics of projects, which I can probably say, Lizette, you may help me here, but you are not learning in school.
Correct. And this is something that I told Genevieve as well, that since I'm I was going to announce this next, but I'm the first student ambassador for Circa Files, and I have gotten the opportunity to log on, create my account, and browse around in the entire platform. I actually already started a binder with like printouts, and I'm going to continue printing out templates and from the educational section and read through them, take notes. So I've already learned a lot of things about the business of design, which we don't quite learn in school. We learn, we're learning how to draft. We're learning how to use all of the digital programs. We're learning about color theory, the different elements of design. And as you guys know, if you guys have been in studio classes, it isn't until we get to the last studio classes that you really begin to put all of these things together. But we're still missing that business of design element. And this is where I've already found that we can capture a lot of those business tips and skills and things that are just as essential to the industry as it is to have all of these other technical skills.
Yes. And I will show you through some of the materials today, but these templates will be, new ones will be introduced regularly. There's kind of a good foundation base on there right now, but trade experts will be kind of partnering with us to develop more, like, the 10 essential things you need to know to specify a custom sofa, or, giving you that edge on, before you go to your boss with, here are these options for, this table, or, oh, I know heard you were looking for an AV expert for this job. I learned about this person on Circle Files. There's just so many ways that you can bring these helpful things to your boss who's just going, a million miles an hour. And so they are all there for you. And Lizette, do you want me to share the deck next, the membership deck or the checklist?
The membership deck would be perfect. So we
Okay.
can run through and show everyone, the gist of what the student membership entails and what benefits they will, they can gain from it. And then we will go
Sure.
with the checklist.
Sure. Okay, so everyone can see what's on my screen now. So we really created the student membership to bridge the gap. I just felt like there was such a gap between, like Lizette said, what you're learning in school, and which is very practical. Do not get me wrong. I suggest, every designer having gone to design school. But this is, kind of it is just, easily transitioning you and giving you expectations as to what is really going on in these, design studios. What do you need to know? So a Circle Files member will really give you this kind of next level expectation and edge. Going to go down here. So some benefits of our platform. We have the global resource directory. We have the community in our chat room, which you can, bond with students within your program, or we will be working to expand our reach with New York School of Interior Design is on our list, and some other, of course, my alma mater of UGA, but really bringing the students together so that they can leverage each other's, location, relationships. There's so much to be learned from other students. There are also job opportunities in the sense that you can post your resume on the message boards so that the professional members can see. They will also be posting, kind of we're hiring opportunities as well. So those message boards are shared and you can correspond with them there. The educational, expert guides, which are discounted if you're a member, they are downloadable for you to keep handy. We will be having quarterly, workshops and webinars with the UCLA Extension Program, and they are available for you to attend. The cost of memberships, we are offering the membership for 3 months at a time, and they are on 2 different levels. The first of which gives you access to the virtual networking space and discounted templates, and that is $25 over the course of 3 months, so that's about $8 a month. The second level is $42, and it gives you all access. You get the resource directory, which will be very helpful in your internship, and the virtual networking space, complimentary expert guides, and discounted templates. Again, some of the people that are aligned with Circle Files, obviously, I turn to my 2 great mentors to help me develop this platform. And, of course, they wanted to be a part of it and support me because I had nurtured that relationship along. And so Michael Berman and Timothy Corrigan are kind of heading up our ambassador pool. But we collaborate with the media, with Business at Home. We do educational workshops for the Insider program, and many other, links together for events. And so Lizette is one of our student ambassadors, but we also have about 28 professional ambassadors. And these are kind of, top tier design firm principals from all over the US and beyond. And they really serve as this local connector from their community to the membership as a whole. So if someone in, Toronto is, looking at Circle Files, like, why they're in Los Angeles, how does this relate to me? I don't know any of these people, I don't know Genevieve. They can say, oh, well, Colette is in Toronto. She's an ambassador. I'm going to give her a call and see what this is all about. So it just kind of, gives a familiarity to everyone. So you can go on our website and request a key. It's on the home page, about halfway down. There's an application that you provide your transcript, and we will schedule kind of an interview with you and just learn about, what you're learning, and just finding out how we can best serve you. It's something that's really important to me to talk to every single member, and that's only going to make the platform so much better and beneficial to our other members. So that's a little bit about what we are doing.
Thank you so much, Genevieve. And if you can pull up the job security checklist that we'll run through next. So everyone should have received an email about an hour before the event started. And I emailed you all the job security checklist. And one of the benefits of you all being here today is that you have access to one of the templates that Genevieve has so kindly shared with all of our students. But this is such a fantastic checklist because, for example, Taylor, who's one of our board members that just transitioned into a design job about 2 months ago, she already said, like, these are all things I wish someone would have told me. I mean, just 2 months ago before I started, but she already confirmed, she was like, these are all things that I'm learning now. So, it's 100% accurate and something that we can all apply.
Thank you for being this case study for us, Taylor.
Yeah, no problem.
So these are some things, that I really wanted to get across, that, again, just kind of set up expectations a little differently than maybe just having your portfolio or just having your CAD skills. It is much more than that, although those things are very important. But when, looking back when I was a designer, when I was just breaking into the interior design industry, I, number one, did not know much about Los Angeles. I had just done a 2-month internship here, and I really needed my feet a lot more, positioned to have a full-time job. And so there were so many different things kind of flying at me. There was, where do I need to shop? What do I say in client presentations? What do I not say? What is all of this lingo the office is throwing around? How do I properly get a quote for a custom piece of furniture? Just so many things. You don't know what you don't know, until you're in that situation and you're just, kind of deer in headlights. So I have put together this checklist, and I'm going to skip to this page really quick, but like Lizette said, I really encourage you guys to put together a binder, or if you're more digitally oriented, you can put together a folder on your computer that has the different guides to be able to, quickly go to when you need to reference them. So, and one of the things I, think is great about having this, these materials is, you can take notes about how you learned about this, or what is your takeaway. And maybe if you transition to another job, or if a new hire comes in the door, if an intern comes in the door, you remember, what that was like. You can give them, hey, you need to read this tonight before you come into work tomorrow. And it will just help them support you better. And that's the goal here, so that you can, lift up the principal and make sure everyone is just more educated about the process. And if you have any questions about this checklist, as a member, you can go, in the chat room, you can ask a question on the message boards. Again, we will be having, the webinars with trade experts to, more deeply educate you about pieces and services. So one of the things, I'm just going to back up really quick. One of the things that, this is our ambassador in Massachusetts, Liz Kahn, she said was that you really need to develop incredible listening skills, and making sure you're picking up on, everything that's going on in the background. Like, what did that word mean? I'm going to write this down. I don't know what it means. So making sure you are just soaking everything up like a sponge is really important, and not just you're there to pass the time, because you can learn so much in one day at a design studio. So I'll just go through this list one by one. So one of the most important things I think about being a designer is being able to see the big picture and how all of the smaller pieces fit into this larger puzzle. So instead of taking, short orders to, okay, go shop this fabric at the PDC. This one's not available. I need some good alternates. Say, okay, well, what is it being used for? When do we need to install these draperies? Are there dogs or there cats that are going to play with, maybe the trim that's going to go on them that I also have to shop? That's another question. Oh, do you need trim now that this other drapery is not available to match with that? So really understanding kind of the components that surround this piece is really important. Okay, so another great question to ask about that alternate drapery fabric: what is the chair fabric? What does the rug look like? What is the wall color that they're going in front of? All of those things not only will help you shop better and give you help guide you to better options, but will really show them that you are committed to making this the best project it could be, and that you're understanding, you're piecing together the sequence of events for a project. So number two, this goes back to what I learned from Michael Berman. Usually designers have a vast library of books, history books, pretty coffee table books that have interesting words in them too. But I would really encourage you to ask the principal if you can borrow, a book a week or a book every 2 weeks, and read it from cover to cover. Notice the names, maybe look them up, learning these different kind of vocabulary words that will just help you become more refined. And if they're, just spouting out all of the things they need, or if you're just, sitting on the sidelines in a client presentation, you could say, oh, they just, talked about this 18th century commode, and I can envision exactly what that looks like in my head. So that just will give you so much more context about your job. So number three, understanding the business of a design firm should be on your radar from day one. I know you've got a lot to accomplish being an intern and learning, but really picking up on, how does the budget relate to what we're picking? Maybe asking in your interview, what billing software do you use? If they, say studio designer, that's what I use. Maybe take a tutorial on that, over the weekend, and email that potential boss and say, on Monday, I I went through the tutorials, and I have a really good grasp on this program now. That will show them again that you have this kind of initiative to learn, and that will also help you understand how the business, kind of the boring logistical side, which will be about 85% of your day, um, how it all happens. So you could even ask them to read a client contract. And some principals might think that, that's absurd for you to ask. But I think if you have gained their trust after about 6 months or so, maybe you can read portions of it, if they don't want you to read the whole thing. But again, it gives you an idea of, how the firm structures the team and their services. So number 4, if the firm does not have a training manual, again, this goes back to what I did at Timothy Corrigan's office. Every time you go into the office, have a notebook with you, have something by your side, so that if a word comes out and you don't know what that means, you can jot it down. Or if they say, you have to make sure and have the fabric knit back before it goes to the pillow workroom or the upholstery workroom, you can write that down. That is one of the vital steps in the process. Sometimes upholstery workrooms will send the fabric back to you because it's not been knit back. And just what that means is, to give you context again, knit backing provides strength to the fabric. It also prevents, feathers from coming through if it's a pillow. And it also gives it a smoother look when it's upholstered. It helps the longevity of the piece. So another thing to do is that you should always have comfortable shoes. Put them in the trunk of your car. You will be asked to go to muddy job sites when you least expect it, to go to the design center all day to shop for fabrics. Sometimes, you don't have time to stop for an hour lunch, or you just need to be as comfortable as possible. And I recommend that you're able to do your job efficiently rather than making a fashion statement. I've done that many times on a job site and learned.
Such a great tip. I've never, we never get these like little tidbits of like real life, troubleshooting.
So one of our ambassadors in New York, Courtney McLeod, she went to Wharton for business, and she is just such an advocate for spending the time, the hours to understand, basic financial accounting. Like, how does the firm put together the budget? What are the formulas that go from the net price of a piece to the total cost? There's sales tax, there's freight, there's the design fee, there could be other installation customs fees. Learning how that is all, kind of computed together is really important. So I'll just go on to the next one. So this goes back to number 6, goes back to, again, it's the big picture of a project that you need to understand. And so even if your boss says, I need you to check stock on all of these fabrics. Okay, do that, but also get the price. Maybe she or he is going too fast. so that, they do need to think about price. Oh, this is a silk velvet. This may be like $500 a yard, and we can't use this on the chairs. They sometimes don't give you all the details. So you need to know what those details are to gather. You usually need to get the stock, the price, the lead time, and if there's, any other extraneous information that's maybe not on the label. If the fabric is actually active and not discontinued is important. You usually get that when you ask for stock, but having these skills to anticipate what your boss might want is very, very essential. So I keep saying some of the lingo that is, thrown around design studios. So, and I would love to know in the chat, maybe if any of you have ever heard of these acronyms, or, maybe they teach you COM in school, but I'll just go through these kind of what they mean. But COM is customer's own material, and a lot of furniture companies either have a selection of fabrics they offer, or you can provide your own material that you have sourced separately from their brand of furniture, and that's what you send to them. So you could either say COM or COM. People say it the same way. COT has the same kind of meaning. So a lot of times furniture companies don't have a selection of trims for you to choose from, but that means you will source it separately from a different company, purchase it from a different company, and you send it to the chair manufacturer to be applied. A CFA, a cutting for approval, and that applies to most fabric orders, some wallpaper orders, some like custom trim orders, but mostly for fabrics, and you will always want to request a CFA. It gives you a snapshot. It's an actual cutting sent to you from the current dye lot that the manufacturer is producing. So your sample that you may have pulled at the design center may be a couple years old and not reflective of it goes back to like the climate and where these fabrics are made. It may be kind of different from the original memo sample. And sometimes if you compare it to your original sample and you say, okay, it's a little different, let's see how it looks with all the other fabrics, because it might look great. Leather is one that varies widely. So that is certainly one never to waive the CFA. And some outdoor fabrics do not offer CFAs because it is made of a material that is consistent and never needs to or never wavers from that original dye. A sample for approval at SFA is a piece. Usually it could either be from a table or a case good that has a finish applied to it. And it is something that is representative of, maybe I order a console table and I want a Swedish painted finish with chippings and gesso, and I can give an image to a vendor and they can go off of that image to match it and submit it to a designer, and they can approve it, or maybe it needs some changes, or maybe it needs to be a little warmer or more distressing. That's what a sample for approval is. A drawing for approval, which often precedes the SFA, is mostly for custom furniture. So anytime you are, making a table from scratch, or maybe you have found this beautiful table in a history book and you want to maybe change the leg design or change the proportions. Most custom vendors will give you a drawing for approval, and that's created on CAD. Sometimes designers will create their own drawing and give it to the manufacturer. It can go both ways. And it will usually have, the dimensions, the specific, any edge details, profiles of the piece. Usually it goes through several rounds of edits. You can go through and redline the piece with, this needs a finished in panel, or here's the hardware size that goes on this drawer. Or if it's a dining table, do the arms of the chairs fit under the tabletop? That's a really popular mistake. This next one, FOB, freight or free on board. That is really a designation of where the liability is transferred from the seller to the buyer. It's often associated with the origin of the piece, where it is made. And this is really important with any damages that may occur in shipping. The BOL, or sometimes B/L, is the bill of lading. And that really gives you, it's a receipt for your shipping. It's from the carrier to the shipper. So if you order maybe a lamp in Italy, it has to get to the port to then get on the boat or the plane to be delivered to you. And it really details, what is in the shipment. It guarantees that it's going to be given to the shipper in good condition, and it kind of, maps out the path for this order. DNet, so that means designer's net for pricing. And that net pricing is a designer's price on a piece. So there is retail pricing and net pricing. A lot of designers do it different ways, but I use net pricing, and I charge a procurement fee on that net pricing. But that is the price you'll usually want to get from the manufacturer. Run that by your boss. Different designers work different ways. But and then lastly, a purchase order, a PO. A purchase order is a document that contains the vendor's name, the ship to address, the side mark, which is the client name and room, the sales code, the freight, the cost of the item, all of the specifications that you need to give the vendor to properly place this order. Like, you put the finish down, you put the quantity, you provide an image of the piece, and most of these details are provided in your billing software. And then lastly, so I think I talked about this a little bit earlier, but when you're asked to pull fabrics for furnishings, again, learn what pieces they're being applied to. How durable do they need to be? If you're specifying, vinyl for a commercial project, you need to make sure it passes fire code and all of these kind of commercial grade tests that are required, by the client. So is this fabric more appropriate for pillows because it's more delicate and maybe it has embroidery or it's perforated, versus, a heavier maybe chenille that can go on a sofa? Is the fabric, when you hold it up, can it drape well, or is it kind of stiff and thick? Noticing if it has indoor fiber contents or outdoor fiber contents is really important. Noting the double rub count, which directly relates to the kind of the durability of the piece in general. It's kind of the measure how many times a fabric is rubbed together before it starts pilling or, deteriorating in some way. And we will be introducing those types of guides on our platform, the different types of properties textiles have, and their uses. So stay tuned. So that's our checklist.
So wonderful.
And yeah,
So much great information. I've keeping an eye on the chat as well, and it seems like there's a lot of new terms for everyone. And I know Lori said she wished she had all this information in her 20s and that she loves all this. So thank you, Lori.
That's the point. What I wish I knew. Yes.
Would you be able to show us some images of some of the projects that you worked on and be able to talk us through some of where you draw inspiration from? That was another question submitted by students. And everyone, we're going to run over a little bit past noon. If you're able to stick with us. We have so many great questions to cover, and we'll fire them off. So more great information to come.
Thank you. Yeah. So I'll answer your question about where I kind of draw my inspiration from, and a lot of it comes from travel. Travel and history books are my two main sources. I'm kind of an old soul when it comes to, not using Pinterest for ideas. I go to, the likes of Renzo Mangiardino or Billy Baldwin or, Bunny Williams. A lot of these kind of legendary designers, and often European for me, have really inspired me to, and given me the confidence to, kind of mix a lot of different eras, and how you mix them, and how this carving relates to this foot style, and really studying that and reading how they did that. And these books inform me on how I put together a lot of my design schemes. And traveling, I really love to travel alone. It really, it gives me the opportunity to just do what I want to do. And, sometimes that involves, staying all day at a museum, or going to a museum twice, in a stay, or just wandering aimlessly and discovering things that I wouldn't necessarily if I had, completely mapped out every part of my trip. And you'll see that I'll just go ahead and share my projects. A lot of my pieces that I designed from scratch are taken from, these points of travel in my life. So this is a project I did in Hope Ranch up in Santa Barbara, and I've been working with this client for 5 years now. And she was my first client, and so she hired me originally for just her master bedroom and maybe the living room. And she came to me actually from a custom rug vendor that I had known and traveled the world with, because he came on many of our installations. So, side note there, nurture your vendor relationships. But it's this beautiful Monterey colonial home. And she is not afraid of color. And so this is her living room, which she wanted to just be very cheerful. And so we chose this red, kind of almost terracotta Venetian plaster for the walls, and kind of this fun carpet that we custom created. And, really tying all of her, she had some existing pieces like this table and lamp, but tying it all together, with the wall color was important. And some of these details that we put into like the side table features a tooled waterproof leather top, so that she can set a glass on it and she doesn't have to worry about, making a ring. Was really special. We also had this cast bronze coffee table made, um, and it weighs several 100 pounds. And so we made tempered glass to go along with it so it can support the weight. And we also had it finished with this clear varnish to prevent oxidation. She lives about a mile from the beach, and that's still very close when it comes to metal finishes and making sure they don't oxidize. You'll see the little like green buildup on the pieces. So that was quite a custom piece we had made. So everyone loves a good before and after, right? So this is her master bedroom. And you can see the carpet is kind of, French country-ish with florals and, this very, kind of dilapidated upholstery. And then this whole bedding situation was, I just can't believe she had been living like that for 15 years, showing the box spring in the mattress. And I felt like these posts were kind of in the middle and didn't allow kind of the room to breathe. So this is the after. And we put in this custom bed and kind of raised the headboard. And she wanted to keep her nightstands. We refinished them. We created this beautiful custom bedding finally with embroidery. And this kind of pop-up TV cabinet at the end of their bed was something very special. It is suede, and you can see there that it is also quilted. And I took the pattern on this cabinet from these wood floors that I had seen at the Pina Palace in Portugal when I was traveling. And it's something that I do at the beginning of every project. I go through, my hundreds, thousands of photos from my travels and see how can I incorporate this into, and how does this make sense in the house? So those details your client really appreciates because they're not going to have, what their neighbor has. So this is another project that is a lot more modern and eclectic. It's in the Hollywood Hills, and it's a client that is very open-minded and is not afraid to take risks. And this is their kitchen I created for them. It's kind of a showpiece. And I was wanting to take kind of the inspiration and they have these amazing views of the mountains. And I wanted to kind of continue that that mountain line through the kitchen. And so I created this kind of mullion going through the kitchen cabinets to mimic that. And that went through a lot of engineering challenges, but I eventually had to turn to my furniture maker to make them instead of the cabinet maker, because he's just more creative and willing to say yes. So I employed this frosted glass above to kind of show the kind of cloud cover, and then the clear glass below to represent the mountains. It's just clarity. And we hand painted this olive on their backsplash, again, to bring what's right outside their doors in. And this is kind of the day shot. This is what it looked like before here on the right. It's just very, ill functioning and, not as bright and special as it could be. This is their bar area, and I just wanted to quickly talk about these doors that we created. They're actually leather upholstered and embroidered and applied with nail heads, and it kind of helps. I can zoom in here if you can kind of see that. So it helps tell the story from the kitchen. It's kind of this nature, organic um, feel to the home. And so these doors were completely wrapped in this faux leather, and they were embroidered. I came up with this poppy design and, measured the scale of it, how that relates to the rest of the room, how I wanted to make sure the bottom of these doors weren't scuffed with people's foot, hitting them, or something spilling. So we put the nail heads there to kind of mimic the soil, and it kind of blends with the baseboard and prevents scuffing. So it kind of does a lot of things in one. But they open up and pocket, I'll keep it like this, pocket into the walls to reveal the bar. It's kind of this jewel box where we put this, kind of bright green tile in, and this like little mini entertaining area for them. And I'll show you a couple befores of their primary bedroom. It felt really, the ceilings were about 18 feet tall, and it felt very cavernous, and it needed to be cozy and intimate and warm. And so this is what we did with it. And it's hard to detect, maybe a little bit here you can see the texture, but we put wall covering on the upper part of the walls to give it that tactility, that texture. And on the bottom part, and that's about 5 feet or so up on the wall, this wood wainscoting, and we painted it in this like deep kind of honey taupe color, and that really helped bring down, the feeling of this large room. And yeah, softening it with, layered window treatments. There are, grass shades behind these draperies really help that the echo effect. You could literally hear yourself talk in there. It was the ceilings were so high, and painting the ceiling a warmer color. All of these things work together to achieve that. And then finally, this is just a little before of their guest bedroom, and it had this kind of dark, closet on the right. It just felt very sparse, and we created this kind of built-in cabinet niche for the bed, and it also it houses their cat box here on the left, which is accessed from the laundry room on the other side, but it has a lot of function to it. And we upholstered this cork wallpaper and had this this top frieze detail carved to match. So that is kind of a snapshot of what I've been up to.
So beautiful. I feel so inspired. I've been keeping an eye on the chat, and everyone, it seems like the rest of you feel inspired as well. But so many beautiful details. And that's something that, Eleanor, our professors like Eleanor and Shepherd and all of these professors that you say extension, they are teaching us like customize things, and we get taught how to customize and spec custom furniture, and it really encouraging us to get creative with designing every piece that goes into the room, not just buying furniture and putting it in a room. And I'm so glad that you taught us how you do that, which actually is a perfect lead into our next question that another student had asked, and is if you can quickly run us through your design process when you start a project.
Sure, yeah. So kind of the first thing I do, after the contract is signed, I take the client out to lunch or dinner, and try and take both clients if there's two involved, because it's really important to get to know them outside of, this is our design project and our budget and our timeline. What's their family like? Where do they travel? What are their hobbies? Do they have philanthropy interests? knowing all of these things, their heritage really informs your design scheme and what they may not be able to articulate to you as to what they want. So that is something that is really important, particularly learning about their heritage. And no matter if it's a modern home or traditional, there are ways that you can incorporate that so that they feel more comfortable. So, kind of getting to know them on a friendly level is really important, in addition to, gaining their trust. But the first things that I do, I either, develop the plans, or obtain the plans if it's not a ground up project, and then work simultaneously on the budget, and then kind of get a hold of what, when they want to be in the house, what the installation date is, and establishing a timeline for that so that they know when they need to be available, how often, so they can make decisions in order to achieve that installation date is very important to set at the beginning of the process. And then from there, I bring in third-party contractors to come in and, specifically bid the scope. And then I start working towards client presentations after I've gotten the budget approval, and specifically pulling, fabrics and furniture. So that's kind of the beginning part of it.
So wonderful to hear and to talk through your process. And this is going to be a question that we're going to continue asking all the designers that we interview as well, so that students can see, how each designer has their own system and their own process. Now, another question that was asked was, how do you stand out as a designer in today's market? And the next question was, how do emerging design professionals stand out in today's market?
So how I stand out, I really lean on and leverage my experience working all over the world and having been formally trained in not only in school, but with these, really high functioning design offices. So knowing that I have access to these, very skilled tradesmen all over the world, and so this is what Circophiles will give you, this leverage to have this, kind of fast track to these artisans. And that, I feel like that is what makes me stand out. And something I take pride on is, so I am kind of basically a one woman show. I have different people I outsource things to, like accounting and CAD and, installation help and whatnot. But they get me when they hire me. And that is important to me, to not ever lose sight of the details of the project, not to ever be able to answer their question, right there on the dot, about where something is. So that's what, how I stand out. And I think to stand out as an emerging designer, it is, it's really important to be able to anticipate and understand how the design process works. Having your CAD skills, I think, is very important, and almost every design firm will make sure you have those, because they, several people in the office need to be able to have capabilities to do that. But I think knowing the big picture, again, it's so important to stand out, and just knowing, conveying that you are committed to, lifting up their design firm, to supporting them, no matter what. So just, showing them that you have that, initiative is really the key.
Thank you for that. And our next question was, this actually, a lot of our students fall under this category of, it's a career change for us. We might come from a completely different industry, but we've been working on developing our skills in school. what tips do you have for students developing their portfolio to begin their journey in design, but don't have any actual work experience, and all we have is our schoolwork and our projects from school?
Right. Well, you know what? You have to start somewhere. And I think everyone will realize that. But if you don't have a portfolio to show, or maybe your CAD skills aren't up to par, be and I don't know if you said if it's like someone from kind of mid-life transitioning into the workforce, but um, let them know that you have life skills, knowing that maybe it is, how do I say this? It is important that you just kind of know how to work through problems when they occur, because there will be many, it's about problem solving. Our job is, you're either on an installation and, maybe this piece you didn't think about the height of the bed with the nightstand, or, whatever it is. There's always problems that will come up in your day, and knowing how to spin them positively, I think, is very important, because energy can get really high in a studio sometimes. But also knowing who to turn to, where to turn to when these things go wrong. And that's another reason why I developed kind of the virtual networking part of our platform, is to be able to do that. I had this text chain of different groups of designers, all over the US, and I'm constantly, texting them saying, oh my gosh, I'm at this installation and this happened. How can I fix it? Or, this fabric is discontinued. Have you seen it? Like, where can I, get something similar? So knowing that you have those problem solving skills will go very far for you. So that's my advice there.
Excellent. Thank you. So everybody become a professional problem solver.
Yes.
For jobs. And now another question that comes up very often, especially for us UCLA Extension students, is in terms of digital programs, which are more important to learn and which are most used in the workforce, between Revit, SketchUp, AutoCAD. I know even earlier you mentioned Studio. So if you can talk us through the digital programs and what can we do to be best prepared?
Yeah, so I would say Revit is, I don't use that in my practice, not yet at least. And I've actually never used that in my career, but I would say that is more needed in architecture firm jobs and with commercial projects. 3D modeling can also, of course, be helpful, but I don't use the Revit program to create those. CAD and SketchUp are the main things I think that designers across the board use for residential projects. So if you are going into that line of work, I would say, certainly have taken a basic course on it. But that will only just give you a bonus. And as far as yes, billing softwares, there's Studio, Designer, there's Style Row that just came on the scene that is really intuitive and great. There's so many, the Ivy, and they kind of all work to do the same thing, but are just kind of formatted a little bit differently. And then I also use Asana kind of for my project management, setting deadlines for myself. As soon as I set up a project, as soon as I have the floor plans, approved, all of that goes in this template I've created in Asana to, specify each piece of furniture. What are the measurements? What are the specifications? The client doesn't want this to be velvet, or they need a phone charger in this side table or something like that. So it goes all in there, so I'm not missing a beat. And that takes me, all the way through, the punch list after installation. So that's a really important program. And then I would say, maybe having Photoshop experience um, is important as well when you go through, room renderings and such. But, some designers like Michael Berman, they just love the finesse of hand. So knowing how to hand draft was really important to him. And I wore that hat for, many years there because I learned it in school.
See, and this is the advice that we all like try to pick designers' brains and try to find out and get more info. And one thing that I was telling Genevieve, and one thing that I would recommend to you students as well, is continue to ask these questions. I know every time I ask, I get different answers, and then I'm starting to formulate, okay, this is the type of work I want to go into. And I've, started to hear the common, like, for example, Revit being more of an architecture focus. And I was very stressed out about learning Revit. And so, these kinds of things are just helpful by truly just asking and, and using all this information to formulate what you guys need to do. Now, another great question was, what would you say are some hurdles to starting an independent interior design business that emerging professionals should be aware of? And do you recommend students to begin working with a designer first, or launch off? A lot of students want to launch off on their own right after graduation, so I'd love for you to speak on that.
Yes, I think this is the most important question a designer could ever get or give an answer to. I think that having a mentor, having an apprenticeship under a designer is the most important thing you could do for your career. You may have so much confidence, after school about, all of these things you have learned, and that's wonderful and more power to you, but practice under a designer first. There are expensive mistakes that will be made, that you will learn from. There's just so much in-field experience that you want to test before you do this on your own, because it is so much more than putting together pretty fabrics. It is, how do you communicate with these sophisticated clients, talking their same language? How do you, there's just so many things, and a lot of them that I've shared with you today that you wouldn't know just jumping right from school to having your own business. And one of the things that I kind of struggled with when I opened my own design firm about 5 years ago, 6 years ago now, is, I had all this knowledge, this, art history knowledge, this training, this business experience. But okay, so how do I get a client in the door? How I had, garnered such a network of vendors. And interestingly enough, a lot of my clients have come from vendor recommendations, and just from me nurturing them all along and working so closely with them about little tiny details, and being on top of the ordering process and inspecting, and making sure you don't let that detail slide and it gets to the installation and then you've got to send the piece back. They pick up on that, and a lot of vendors work directly with clients. Like a hardwood flooring specialist recommended me to a great client, a custom rug manufacturer. And a lot of times, clients, for one reason or other, end up having a turnover of designers on their projects. So, a client could be in a position to where they're, just, they don't have the bandwidth to look and interview for more designers. So maybe they're going to ask this contractor that's been on their job for years who they want. So making sure you nurture those relationships has been really key for me. And you really need to be outgoing and willing to just talk to and support your peers. There will be opportunities that arise from that. And I think marketing yourself is really something you have to be geared up for when you open your own business, because people just won't, start knocking at your door. Even if you sign up for digital platforms that market you, you need to be scrappy, and you need to hustle, knock on the doors, call real estate agents. So yeah, that's my 2 cents there.
This is actually a perfect lead into our next question that someone asked, if you can talk on the importance of networking, and if you could share any tips on how to make the most out of any networking opportunity.
Yeah, so I can give you a good case study. I joined the Estate Managers Coalition a few years ago, and I thought it would be a good kind of shortcut to meet, these decision makers on these big estate projects, and learn how I can support them. And so they had monthly events where you'd go and network with vendors and some estate managers. And after every event, I would take the business cards that I got and write a note to them, and throw some branded materials in there, make sure it's on your stationery. And that really went a long way. And I met with, separately with almost everyone I sent a note to, and either, gained them as a vendor on another project, or something came from every note that I wrote, because it wasn't just another email sent to their inbox. It was something that took time, and you have to take it to the post office, and it just is something that is really not done today. That another old soul quality of mine. But the follow up for networking events, not just going to them, is really important. Kind of working your way around the room. And even if it's somebody you meet that you'll say, oh, you'll never need to call this person, or call them. Like there have been so many instances where I have met somebody that eventually left a client, some kind of opportunity, but the follow-up is so key for networking.
And one piece of information that I'll add to this that I learned my undergrad, and I still use to this day, is every time you meet someone, we all are processing so much information. It's very hard, it's very hard to remember all the people that you meet, but just take a second to write on the back, like where you met them, maybe something you talked about, or write any sort of notes that will help you remember. And then when I followed up with people, I'll say, I met you Friday afternoon at so-and-so event, and we briefly chatted about X, Y, and Z. Now I'm following up with ABC. So write a little note on the back of a business card. It'll take you a long way.
That's a really great piece of advice. I kept a binder specifically for this networking group that I joined, and it's alphabetical. I put the business cards in there, and we all have, kind of photographic memories. We'll remember what that card or the brand looks like. And you just go, I went through that all the time. So great advice. Is that?
And all of you, any students, like I went on moo.com and I paid like $30, and I ordered a small stack of student business cards. And I mean, they just have my email and my phone number. But I handed all of these out in Paris, and everyone was like, oh, wow, student business card. I mean, it didn't even have that much information, but it was like one tiny brownie point that you can gain. So this leads into our next question. All of us young designers, we want to yell at the top of our lungs and share our design voice. But as we're starting off, do you recommend young designers following trends and sticking to what's popular to gain more clients? Or do you recommend following your voice, sticking to what you believe in, and following your gut?
Good question. And it's kind of, there's no, golden rule to this. And for me, it's kind of been a little mix of all of this put together. So I have a personal design style, based on where I grew up, and, it's steeped in this kind of traditional French feeling. But I'm also, young, I like to think, and I like, streamlined pieces and color, and so I have my own sense of style. And, rarely do I get to employ that on projects, but I, really consider myself kind of a chameleon for my clients. And I think that speaks to how versatile my design, training has been. One project was not like the next. Michael Berman had a very different aesthetic than Timothy Corrigan did, and that was a whole learning curve in itself. The layers. But I think being able to design in many different styles is certainly an advantage to appealing to more clients. I think it is important certainly to follow trends, paint colors, and especially with technology and products. But I think it's also very important to stay true to yourself and follow your gut. And if someone, maybe love all the Louis pieces, and your client really wants a contemporary, very restrained project. And if you don't gravitate towards that, then you have to be honest with yourself. Somebody else may be more fit, for the job, but I think it's kind of a mixture of all of that. I hope that helped.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing all that. And now talking about post-pandemic, how do you think the pandemic has shifted and will continue to shift the course of design trends and practices? And how do you predict the future of, design will be? And have you seen any, have you had to overcome any challenges yourself?
So I think the pandemic has affected the way we live, and has given designers really this opportunity to convey our value to what we can bring to a home. And the ways we can enhance their lifestyle, make their lifestyle more functional, is I think this is like our best opportunity to get that point across, because everyone said it, you're spending so much time at home, and you may want a much better kitchen, or your home office. That's been the most popular. But knowing, being able to just, yes, convey that value, and giving them, I've always incorporated this into my presentations, but giving them kind of statistics on designers. Hiring a designer can help you avoid so many mistakes, and making your home office so much more efficient, can reduce, give you 1 hour more of time to focus on yourself, so that you have to look through all these files, it's all organized, or whatever the case may be. Incorporating that in there is helpful. And as far as trends go, I think that everyone debates the open layout versus the room layout, and I think that's going to be situational as to what how the client lives. I don't think it's necessarily everyone has to have an open floor plan right now. I think it's, do you want privacy from your kids, or whatever that may be. So I'm not per se like a very strict follower of trends, because I'm kind of a classicist, and a lot of that comes through in my work and why people hire me. But I'm always in the know, for you just have to be. You have to be on your toes.
Thank you for that. And a student actually messaged me, and they wanted to ask, what was the book that Michael Berman recommended to you? You shared in the story that like your first week he gave you a book to read, and if you have any other books you would recommend as well.
Oh my, I have so many books. Well, one of them that I think I mentioned was, and this is a designer, and he has a series of books, but Renzo Mangiardino. I'll type it in the chat. And Studio Paragali is another one. That's a firm out of Milan that is just, their designs are sublime. Very rooted in history. There's so many. Maybe I can give you a list, Lizette, and you can send it out to
Yeah,
everyone.
that would be wonderful. And I can follow up with an email for everyone. And now bear with us, everyone. We're just going to fire off some 5 last questions. And then if you guys have any other questions, you can submit them in the chat and I can email them to Genevieve, follow up with you guys. Now, what recommendation do you have for someone transitioning at midlife who doesn't live in the metropolitan area?
Oh, good one. First thing that comes to mind is you should look up Business of Home, the 50 States Project. And they, chose a designer from every state, and you should see who's in your state, and call her up or him and say, can we meet for coffee, or do you need an intern, or offer what you can to them. Hopefully you like their style, or their goals. But I would start there, and I would just say do some research, as to who's the best designer that you think of in your state, and call that person. Take the initiative. Yeah.
Thank you for that. And with all the different directions you can go in design, we're starting to learn all the different sectors. Are there certain personalities you think fit best in a certain sector?
Well, I think that, like, maybe if you're going after showroom, a showroom position, sales, that you need to be very outgoing and not afraid to make a cold call, or, knock on a designer's, firm door. So that takes a really, kind of type A personality. I, if you're going after an architecture job, when maybe you want to sit behind a computer and create these beautiful floor plans and models all day, maybe that's more of a quieter person that likes that, type of work. What are the other kind of sectors that I need to speak about?
Maybe perhaps going into a furniture design or lighting design or being a designer of objects.
Okay, so being a designer of objects, I would say that, the personality type, I think you would need to be okay with kind of being a ghost, designer of sorts. So sometimes you would maybe create, pieces for a line of furniture that already exists. So that's kind of one way you can do it. I just met a textile artist that does this, like creates designs for Holly Hunt and, Schumacher and things like that. And she talked a lot about, being a ghost and not being able to talk about and express how she, came about, produce the designs. And being a designer that would have your own label, I think that you would need to really develop a narrative, have this imagination about how you, conceptualize this piece is really important. And having, telling the story, having those, really being able to articulate the, inspiration. And I think that's the personality type there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's like a whole other realm in itself.
Yeah.
And we have 2 more questions. So for any designers who have been trained through experience and might not have an extensive design career, But besides taking classes, what are some ways that these self-trained designers can be more marketable to other designers?
I think being involved in organizations, of course, Circle Files is here for you, but there are many other, networking type organizations that, not only will you meet other people, but you will, usually there's a speaker or, ASID is one of them, of course. There's many different organizations, and maybe joining, I don't know if Business of Home has a student kind of insider program, but signing up for their mailing list, just really educating yourself is, I think, the best way to do it. And yeah, not being afraid to approach anyone. So
Thank you for that. Now, lastly, if you could leave us with one last takeaway, what would it be?
ooh, well, I think kind of maybe the theme of our talk today is, and kind of, showing you how I came to be where I am, is that I aligned myself with a star. And I think, in doing that, you, really just immediately put yourself on that type of, learning level, that type of expectation level, um, faster than if you were, to just settle for something that you actually didn't want. But aligning yourself with the star really gives you that ability to, then maybe when you're no longer working for this person, or maybe it's not even someone you're working with, but leveraging their their network as well, leaning on them. How can you help them, after you stop working for them, or if you're just friends with them, how can you continue that relationship? And that's what it's really all about. When I started Circle Files, I was kind of overwhelmed with, oh, how am I going to put this all together? I needed, the technical people to do it, but I also needed, to locate ambassadors, and it's all right under me, with Michael and Tim and all the vendors. And it's really about that alignment that I think is the biggest takeaway from today.
Gosh, thank you so much. I can't even, put into words the wealth of knowledge that we have all learned today, and just so many questions that I think a lot of students have been wanting to ask, but we haven't had that much, that many opportunities to ask these questions to designers. To everyone here, thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you for sticking with us until 12:40. There's 29 of you guys still here hanging strong. And our student chapter is working really hard to continue to bring these types of programs to you guys. Our mentor, Rocky LaFleur, who we honor every single day and with every single event, used to say, it's hard for students to craft a professional future without knowing the opportunity. So what we're doing is we're working really hard to expose you students to all the opportunities that are out there, so that we can all graduate and be able to craft our professional future. So thank you all so much for being here today. Genevieve, if any student would like to get in contact with you, or ask any further questions, how can they reach you?
Yes, so you can email me at club@circlefiles.com. That's the best way to get to me. It goes to my team, but I see it too. And happy to, speak with any of you on specifics of something, or, certainly go to Circle Files and, see more of what it's about.
And make sure you follow her on Instagram. Her handle is Circa Genevieve. Circa Files is the Circa Files Instagram account. We're ASID UCLA Extension. If you go to our post, you see we tag everyone and keep everyone tagged on there. And as Rocky LaFleur would say, all you have to do is just show up. So thank you so much for showing up today. We are so appreciative, and we will see you next time.
Thank you guys so much. And yes, we will see you next time. Thank you, Lizette.